Hello, and welcome today to Celebrity Customer Experience, Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything related from EX to CX and from the inside out, from the employee experience to the customer experience, because I'm truly obsessed with the concept of employee experience creating outstanding customer experience. And I feel every customer deserves to have the same attention and treatment as a celebrity, thus the name Celebrity Customer Experience. I believe that your business, your restaurant can increase revenue while increasing and engaging committed and loyal employees and customers. And it begins from the inside, which is why my proprietary process is called the Inside Out Framework, EX to CX, because I guarantee you outstanding EX will produce outstanding customer experience. I am super excited today to bring you an amazing guest. And before I bring him on, I just want to remind everyone, if you're listening live, please feel free to comment, join in our conversation. I will be able to see your comments and be able to post them up there, and then we can engage with your questions or anything that you have to join in our conversation. So thank you. So without further ado, I am going to bring in Bill Staikos joining us today. Hi, Bill. Thank you for coming.
Jill, it's such a pleasure and an honor to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I've been really looking forward to this.
Same here. And I love the music. I'm all like jammed up. I'm all peppy.
All right. It's a new intro. So great. Thanks for the feedback. So for those of you who may be not familiar with Bill, you need to know Bill. Bill Staikos heads up the customer experience for Freddie Mac and is the host of a weekly Be Customer-Led podcast, an amazing podcast you must subscribe, and co-founder of the Monday Mentor Meetup, a coaching and mentoring community for CX and EX professionals launching soon. Yep. Excited to hear and see about that. Bill has over 20 years experience in CX and EX, and his mission is to bring together these disciplines to create value for employees, customers, and shareholders. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh man, it's great to be here, Jill.
And thanks for all of your efforts and your great energy, which all of you will see in just a moment, of bringing these two areas together because they are intrinsically intertwined with one another. And so when I first connected with Bill on LinkedIn, and then our first phone call, I feel like I've known Bill for ages. We just are very much aligned in a lot of ways in the way we think and our philosophies and our values. And so starting with the fact that we both have similar childhood upbringings.
Yep.
So Bill, why don't you please share with us a little bit of your background and your journey, which led you down the path of employee and customer experience?
Yeah. So, I always joke around that, I learned everything about customer experience and employee experience for that matter from my mother. And as a Greek kid growing up in the Northeast, I worked in a diner. My parents owned a diner. That's what, I know it's a cliche, but that's what Greeks do. Right. And I'm generalizing, I get it. But, and it was a really fantastic learning experience as a kid, but also really made me appreciate, the importance of a service mindset and creating a service culture in your business or your organization. And that's just something that stuck with me for a long, long time. When I was in high school and going to college, I thought I wanted to go work on Wall Street. I mean, this is back in like the 80s, post 87 crash when it was still booming. I went to go work with the heritage JP Morgan. I was a fixed income analyst, and gosh, if I read another bond indenture, I think that I would have jumped out of the window of the building. It was I couldn't do that. It was really great cerebral work, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed meeting with clients as well when I was able to go on a client conversation, but it was just not the creative outlook that I needed. And I got into market research and research-based consulting, and then design, leading teams, and then employees and culture to where I am today. And, about 7 months ago, I started the podcast as well, really focused on trying to create a much more cohesive conversation, much like you are, Jill, around employee experience and its direct impact on the client experience. And, what are those best practices across both disciplines and how are people bringing them together today? And it's been a really great learning curve. For someone who's doing this for a long time, you're like, what else do I have to learn? I'm learning so much every week talking to different people. It's just been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's really fun. I feel the same way. I started during the time of COVID as a way to really reach out and to help others. And it's led me to meeting you. It's led me to clients. It led me, this morning, I had a call with someone in India who's going to be a guest. And I have someone who's also going to be a guest from Australia. Like, just, it opens my world. And I'm such a person who, I've been very fortunate to have lived in and worked across 3 continents and multiple countries, and love that international mix, and had that in New York City, but less so now that I'm in Austin. So for me, this time period and our technology has really opened the world up again for me to have access and to get, I get lit up by that. So it's really been great for that. For that purpose. Speaking of being lit up, what lit your fire to and inspired you to actually create a podcast?
So this is probably top of the year, top of last year rather, excuse me. And I really love the concept of how do you create cultures, corporate cultures that really believe in the mission of the organization, and how does that translate and manifest itself into even delivering a better customer experience, right? You can design great customer experiences, but if the people who are supposed to deliver those, whether they're in the contact center, sales, and other parts of the organization that are interfacing, even internal teams that are interfacing with internal people, it will fall flat. And I was like, let's embark on having that conversation. So I started just doing a lot of research and saying, what's out there, right? Like what research is out there, and what are people talking about? And is it really progressing as fast as I was hoping as it was advancing? And, there was a lot of great, just theoretical stuff out there, but I'm just like, God, from big consulting companies as well. And it's good stuff. I mean, I'm not discounting that that it's not interesting reading. But I wanted just a deeper conversation. And I was like, you know what? A great way to do that is actually to have these conversations, record them, and put them out there, and hopefully it helps somebody. And I'm 7 months in now with the podcast, and I had a proud papa moment yesterday. I actually looked at my stats. We have listeners in 44 countries now. Thank you to my listener in Mongolia who's keeps on downloading. It's the coolest thing to see that, like, who is interested in this topic in Mongolia, right? Like, as you know, right? I'm sure you see your stats too. So it's really energized me to just say, okay, one, something good is here. It's people are learning and they're valuing it. And I'm growing and learning as a person myself. And it's, I just wanted to create a better conversation out there on the topic. So, and hopefully I'm doing that.
Well, you certainly are. I've listened, besides the fact I've had the pleasure of being your guest.
Yeah.
It's not out yet, but having been on your podcast and having that conversation and having listened to many of them, I can tell you that you're putting out lots of gold nuggets and gems, and it's really, I recommend it to everyone to please, go in and check out Bill's podcast.
Oh, thanks.
And I find it interesting, Bill, because of the balance, right? With your job, you're 9 to 5, so to speak, right? It's not necessarily 9 to 5, but you're, working with Freddie Mac, but still customer experience.
Yep.
And then now it's almost like this whole other side.
Yeah, one, I'm fortunate to work for a company that was open to me even doing this. And, when I originally was thinking about it, I was like, I'll do a monthly or maybe something biweekly. And I've got to tell you, the first one I did, I was like, I got to do this every week now. And so I'm grateful to Freddie Mac for being open to me doing this sort of stuff. And then just kind of, working on that conversation and getting it out there. There are days when I'm like, gosh, it's a lot. And it can be, as you know, right? But it's really been such a motivator for me that, I even did my first, I know you've been doing live shows for a while now, but like I did my first live show on Wednesday, and I was like, man, there's so much even more out there that I'm even like thinking about, right? And it's just, it's just one of those things that, in life, when you really love it, you find time for it. And I think that is the important thing. Much like companies. If you love the company, you will find time for its products and its services and its people. So yeah, I'm all in.
I forgot. That's right. You were podcast only, and I was so happy to see you live just the other day. I was like, all right, it suits you.
I was breaking new ground. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, I haven't been at it that long. You are number 40. You're my episode number 40. So,
cool.
Excited to grow with that. And, I think it's interesting. And I love that a company like Freddie Mac is actually prioritizing and focusing on their customer experience, because clearly you head that up. So they see that as a value. Can you speak a little bit to that in terms of how you see this arena in the larger businesses, in the companies, and how it will make an impact both on those that they touch directly, but also as a leader for other companies?
So I think employee experience and customer experience is the business imperative of the next decade. And I think COVID has taught us that the workforce is a much more important asset than I think people probably realize or even maybe had given credit toward. Mm-hmm. And it's an employee's market right now. And I love the fact that there's this renaissance around it. I come from a place of I had an old boss, and she had this saying. She would say, "Let's get all the facts on the table," and that meant data. And I think that especially when you're embarking on a path to say, how do we bring employee experience and customer experience together, because they can be a little bit squishy topics generally. I love bringing data into the conversation. I joke that data is my love language, but not too many people would say that. But and if you can do that and actually make real connections and make it measurable, you can start to identify the value in concrete terms and have that conversation with different business leaders in the organization, even financial leaders in the organization. If you can start to connect the dots of, efficiency gains, top line revenue, et cetera. And, no one has a data problem today. Actually, there's so much data in every company, whether you're a small business or a large enterprise, you've got a lot of data. The important thing is to just kind of identify, one, very simple things like, what HR or operational data do you have? Do you send out maybe like an employee pulse or even like an annual engagement survey? Do you send out a customer survey even annually? Now you've got data to start to pull together and to analyze. And I love the fact that a lot of analytical packages today are like a PhD in a box. You don't need a PhD anymore. And it's super easy to bring that data together and start to identify the behaviors and the patterns that deliver those great experiences. I was having, just really quick, if you don't mind, I was having a conversation just a couple of weeks ago, and someone said, well, in our contact center, we do like our, typical post-call survey, et cetera. And, we record all the calls and we have text analytics, et cetera. But like, how do I start to think about the employee, the contact center employee and how they're driving a better experience? I'm like, well, you're doing it all already, right? Here's how the call went, and you've got that data. You know what what the contact center agent is saying, because you've got text analytics, and you've got all this stuff, from speech to text. It's really just about identifying who has high scores, and just put it on a 2x2 box, right? You've got high, satisfaction scores, and you do have a rating in the text analytics that says this is a positive conversation or negative. And, just put that on a 2x2 and plot it. And the folks that are on a top right, positive experiences and have high SAT scores, go understand what they're doing differently. Listen to those calls. The folks that are in the bottom left box, right? That's where you can start to look and start to identify those patterns.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think that, obviously with the call center, you have that immediate data, right? If people are willing to stay on and take that survey, you can look at that and you can have that data much deeper and much broader right from the beginning. But I think the key thing is something that you touched on is assessing the data. And it's not just to have the data. Sometimes if you have so much data, it's overwhelming and nothing gets done with it. So I think the key is to have a system in place, like you said, to put it in certain boxes, to be able to systematically organize that data,
Yep.
but then to really assess, okay, this was positive, this was negative. Okay, so let's look at both more carefully, not just say, okay, that was great, we don't have to think about it. Let's learn from
Totally.
that. What really was successful here? And let's do more of that. Let's teach
Yep.
others to do that who are not doing it. And the even more valuable is sometimes looking at the negative feedback and saying, okay, where did we fail? Where did we drop the ball? What is it that our customers want from us that we weren't successful in
Yep.
delivering to them? And then figuring out, okay, now let's just tweak our plan. It is an iterative process for sure, and it's endless. But I think the key is to really ask those questions and to constantly be listening,
Totally
not
agree.
hearing what they say, but to really listen to the response of the customer's voice and what they want. And sometimes it might be something that was influenced by the employee who delivered that service,
Yep.
or it may be the product or service that you're delivering. So there's so much and so much information, but it seems very overwhelming. But for me, it also seems quite simple, that if you just really drill down and focus on listening carefully, and then take that data and that information and really putting it to work, so much improvement can be made from that.
Yeah, and as CX professionals and EX professionals on some level, we have the tendency, I mean, there's so much out there on CX transformation and EX transformation. That's a big word. We sometimes fall into our own trap of trying to make things too big and boiling the ocean. Start super small, right? Super small and narrow, and start building on that and learning more. That's what makes teams successful.
And agree. Yeah, you got to one step at a time. And if you start too big, you will feel overwhelmed, and then you'll go into kind of this analysis paralysis situation,
Exactly.
and nothing will get done, and there'll be no change whatsoever. And you touched on having an annual survey for employees, and even maybe for your customers. I'm a strong believer that if you really want to see change happen, and especially with the speed of the way the world is changing today so rapidly, particularly with this 2020, with the pandemic, I think we've seen the speed change in science and what's happened. And I think there's a reverberative, if there's such a word, a reverberation, an approach, right, that's reverberating from that, that's happening and crossing over into other industries, and with that combined with technology. And so I think with everything being so fast, that annual surveys are like, by the time you find out, you've missed the boat and things have changed, or you've missed the opportunity to make it right, because we're all human, we all make mistakes. And the key is, and I think every customer agrees, and statistics show, the data shows that it's not where you fall. It's not where you make the mistake. It's what you do to make it right.
That's right.
And as human nature, we want to believe the best in people. We want to feel that they are serving us. And there's this universal law of reciprocity, right? So you do right by them, and you say, we messed up. I'm sorry, we were wrong. Let me make it right for you. Tell me how I can do this. How can I make you satisfied? How, and even so far, taking it to thinking about the surveys and the reviews and asking for reviews. How do we get a 5-star review from you? What else can we do? And so I think it's important that this be done on a regular basis and not on an annual basis. I think that's kind of the old guard and the corporate way of doing everything annually. And I think that's a detriment.
So I'm with you 100%. There are a lot, so we can't forget, there are still a lot of organizations in the US globally that are still like starting their journey in customer experience or employee experience, right? And a lot of those organizations today are maybe not up to speed on those best practices, right? So I was trying to give an example of, even if you do an annual survey, I think that you need to be going out quarterly to your customers. I think you need to be doing regular pulse. And this is, by the way, through the journey, not just one time, how are we doing? You need to measure through the journey and ask questions throughout the journey, not only for your customers, but also for your employees. And being able to bring that data together gives you just such rich insight. You then can activate, do something with it. And it's not analysis paralysis. It's you get actionable insight every quarter about how we're doing, what we can improve on, what we're doing really well, because part of good design is not breaking what already works really well for your customers. It's a good way to lose customers as well, or iterating on those strengths and making them even better. You got to identify those too. I agree. That's an outdated thing. I will add one more thing though, that, what's happening, at least in the pandemic, is a lot of companies are still asking the same questions. Can't tell you how many surveys I get, how satisfied are you with this product? I'm like, the way that I even think about your product is fundamentally different because of COVID, but you're asking me pre-COVID questions, right? So I think as CX leaders, we need to be thinking about what we're asking our customers regularly as well. And how does that change? Because the way we think and use products and services has certainly changed.
Thank you. We're in alignment. You're reading my mind, because actually one of my questions to you was, how do you feel that COVID has impacted EX and CX? And you just touched on one of those for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the other way is just this rehumanization of the workforce. I love seeing that, and I love the conversation. I think that it's also from an employee experience perspective, I think we're going to see organizations, and a lot already talking about this in the press, and even starting to make some changes, just rethinking the workforce and where people work generally, right? I think that organizations are looking at, remote work as a way to enrich people's lives, right? Like, so forget the hour or 2 hour commute that's going to cost you $500 a month. Now that's back in your pocket because your role can be fully remote. Like, think about the life-changing, impact of that kind of decision can be on your employees. Like, that creates motivated people, right? I mean, that could be a mortgage payment for some folks in the US. So, that's right. I think that is, to me, that's the silver lining, the gold lining, frankly, in all of this, is rethinking their workforce and helping them be better every day, not just as employees, but also be better in their own personal lives too.
Absolutely. And it is one of the things that I love too, that I think is this one of the silver linings to take out of this pandemic, is that it recognizes that no business succeeds without their people. Their people actually is their business, That's right. And it's amazing to me how quickly and how companies so much overlook that, kind of to your point early on, where you talked about the data and the hard ROI financial piece of it. But and even I love the word you referred to as squishy, right? The experience piece is the way it's viewed as kind of a squishy, soft skills. You'll hear it.
Yeah.
And I push back on that and say, there's nothing soft about your people. There's nothing soft about the fact that when you have high turnover and chaos and a lack of collaboration amongst your team, and there's no cohesive structure going on, that your customers are going to feel that without a doubt. And so there's nothing soft about that. And I call them essential skills, actually. And I think the human capital piece of that is essential. There's nothing soft about it. There's nothing important. And they're, without them, and to me, that's one of the things. I'm actually just started working with this other software that when I'm working with clients or coaching, that it pulls together information so that I can deliver a report showing them the hard cost, the ROI, financial ROI of the fact that when you take those essential skills and the people in your business, that you can see direct results financially. And it's not something that can be ignored. Just imagine, the short of it, beyond gathering all this data, if all your people walked out, or even now, there's a big problem. A lot of people don't want to come into work because of still the fear, right, of catching COVID. So put a number to that. That's pretty easy to do, right?
Look, not everybody has the luxury of working from home. Let's put that out there as a fact too. But if you do, and you're able to be productive, and you've got a good environment to be able to work in, it's a tough sell to say, why do I need to be back in the office 5 days a week now, right? And again, I think it comes back to the conversation around, well, if I can be as productive 5 days a week from home, maybe I come in 2 or 3. I think Google is going to like a 3-2-2 model, 3 remote, 2 in, and 2 off, which is the weekend essentially for many. Why can't we do that and give people our people the tools and the capabilities to be successful in that kind of working environment.
And I think now that we've had the taste of being home, if you have children or, you're taking care of an elderly, whatever your need is, that they're more productive and they're going to appreciate the company's appreciation of them. And when someone feels appreciated and trusted, then they're empowered. And they show that people who are empowered are going to do their best work and be more productive. And I do think that we're never going back. I don't believe in going back anyway. I think we learn from the past and we take it forward. And I think that this has given us the opportunity to see that we can be just as productive and actually hopefully happier people once we can create the hybrid situation, which is what I think will be. And God willing, soon with the vaccine rolling out, that we'll get back to a situation where everyone can be social again, in closer proximity, because I think we need that. We're all human beings. And, that social connection is so, so important. But to be able to have both. And I also think that it's been really cool. And, you hear a lot of talk about the fact that now employees are seeing their C-suite and their top leaders in their home environment with their dogs, with their kids coming in, and it's like, oh, they're human too.
Yeah.
And I think that actually also creates a better culture for your company, a closer knit company, to realize that you're not sitting across the desk as the small person. You're a little bit on equal level. And
that's right.
You're all just looking at the camera. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. And like when we first spoke, it wasn't an official podcast or a podcast like this, but your daughter came in and it was just like, oh, it warmed my heart,
Yeah. I'll tell you, the ability to go upstairs and sit down and have lunch with my kids you cannot put a price on that.
Exactly.
And if I can hold on to some of that even when everything kind of returns, whatever the new normal is going to be, if I can hold on to a little bit of that, that'll just be amazing, right? Like I get so much inspiration from that.
I love it. And I do think that is what most people feel. And that's why I think you'll see productivity going up as long as people don't feel burned out. I know there was a study done too that a lot of people are working more hours and feeling a little burned out. But I think once there's that hybrid scenario and there's a little bit, when you introduce anything new into a system, there's a bit of a lot of up and down and trying to figure it out. But I think people are starting to get their flow now and all that. So gosh, this time goes so fast. I decided to try my best to make these new this year to stick to about a 30-minute show, because I think more people will hang on. So let me just start by saying, Bill, we're going to do a series. I definitely need to have you on again.
Oh, I'd love to.
There's still so much more to talk about. But and the last couple of things, I guess, one, what are your goals for 2021 in regards to this whole EX and CX becoming more prominent and important?
So one is I'm going to keep on kind of beating the drum of how to bring EX and CX together. So, expect more content from me, not only on my website, but also, through LinkedIn and other social media. I think the podcast is going to be an important part of that. I'm looking to set up with a colleague of mine, like a monthly online mentoring platform and a coaching platform, because there's so many teams out there. And I get this question a lot from listeners and others, like, how do I go do this effectively? Or how do I go do that effectively? Mm-hmm. Right. It could be a new salesperson or a new contact center person thrust into a role to head up CX. So really just starting to give people the tools and the nuggets. And we actually set up a LinkedIn community Monday mentor meetup to go do that. And so excited for that and just giving back to the community. I think that's a huge focus for me and in the coming years. So
great. I love it. Thank you. I didn't realize that was going to be on LinkedIn. So thanks for letting us know. And I did put Bill's email address, not email address, excuse me, the website address for Be Customer Led. It is just becustomerled.com. So that's on the screen for everyone. And someone just piped in a LinkedIn user. There's no name here. It says Awesome Live, Jill Raff. So thank you for whoever's joining, and feel free to put in any questions. We're just winding up, unfortunately, but we'll be back again with Bill for sure.
Cool.
But put in any questions or comments that you have there as well, and tag both Bill and myself, and we'll be sure to get back to you on that. So thank you. And I just want to say, I guess I'm going to throw out one more thing, because
Sure.
I love this. I always find it very inspiring to find out what guides others and what inspires them on their journey. And so I love to hear whether it's a favorite book, a person, or a quote. I just love all that, and I can learn and take from that, as I'm sure anyone else. So will you share with us which one of those things you want? I'm sure there are many. So
oh my gosh.
Why?
I will say I'm inspired by my family every day, and inspired by things that in the world that work and don't work. My favorite, I'm a huge Albert Einstein fan. And my favorite quote of his is that genius has limits, but stupidity does not. And for me, what that means, and I've actually written it on my whiteboard in my office when the days when we were going to the office. And for me, what that means is like, just check your ego at the door, right? And just, you do not have all the answers, and don't pretend that you do. And, life is all about learning and growing, and you just have to invest in that all the time.
Oh my gosh, brilliant. I love that. Thank you. Yes, I have a course right now online at Thinkific, specifically geared towards restaurants, but the concepts are the same for any business, honestly. If you have employees and customers, then the same concepts apply.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that I really, in multiple documents, and I'm like, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but this is so important. And I specifically say, park your ego at the door. Like literally, if you want to get the most out of this course, if you want to grow, you have to be fully honest with yourself. Nobody else is going to hear this or know about it unless you want me to. And just really put your ego aside and just be real about what's happening. And that comes into what we talked about before with the surveys and the assessments. Really look at the negative column almost more than the positive, because this isn't about a stroking. Oh, I did this great. It's about where can we grow? Where can we improve? So, well, gosh, thank you so much, Bill. We will definitely have you back on.
Thanks. Love to.
Always such a pleasure and a treat to speak with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Nice to be with you.
And we're just going to close out here in a second. And really, let us know what you're interested in hearing, if you have a guest that you want to have on next week. Super excited. The 21st, Thursday, 12 o'clock Central, same time every week, Thursday, 12 o'clock Central. A great branding expert and coach, Lorena Acosta. You can find her on LinkedIn. She's established over 1 million followers and is very active, very involved, really genuine, and some really great feedback and tips and ideas about personal branding. So please join us for that next week, next Thursday. And thank you as always for joining today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time on Celebrity Customer Experience. Thank you.